Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tesla's fourth quarter 2024 Q&A webcast. My name is Travis Axarod, the head of investor relations here at Tesla, and I am joined today by Elon Musk and Vaibhav Taneja and a number of other executives. Our Q4 results were announced at about 3 p.m. Central Time in the update deck we published at the same link as this webcast. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodhi, and I am your host. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about Tesla's Q4 2024 earnings call. And this was a weird one. You know, Elon did not seem his typical self in this one. And I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just saying he seemed very scattered. You know, he's bouncing around back and forth from topic to topic to topic. Like he'd be talking about autonomous driving, then he would go to Optimus, and then he'd go back to autonomous driving, then he would talk briefly about energy, and then he'd go back to Optimus, and then he'd talk about AI, and then you go back to Optimus again. It was just like a lot, right? And as a result, I'm going to play his entire opening remarks. I'm not going to edit them at all, mainly because the way that he bounced back and forth from topic to topic to topic, I'm kind of afraid that you might think that I edited it in a weird way. So it's completely, his opening remarks will be unedited. So let's go ahead and dive into Elon's opening remarks.
In Q4, we set a record and delivered vehicles at an annualized rate of nearly 2 million a year. So congratulations to the Tesla team on excellent work achieving record production and deliveries. Model Y was the best-selling vehicle of any kind for 2024. That's worth noting. Not just the best electric vehicle, the best vehicle of any kind on Earth. Number one was Model Y. We're staying focused on maximizing volumes and obviously doubling down for, I don't know what. It's really, I was going to say doubling down on autonomy, but really it's like autonomy is like 10xing things, frankly. Doubling is not even enough. We made many critical investments in 2024 in manufacturing AI and robotics that will bear immense fruit in the future. Immense. Like it's, in fact, to such a scale that it is difficult to comprehend. And I've said this before, and I'll stand by it. I see a path. I'm not saying it's an easy path, but I see a path to Tesla being the most valuable company in the world by far. Not even close. Like maybe several times more than. I mean, there is a path where Tesla is worth more than the next top 5 companies combined. There's a path to that. I mean, I think it's like an incredibly, it's like a difficult path, but it is an achievable path. And that is overwhelmingly due to autonomous vehicles and autonomous humanoid robots. So our focus is actually building towards that, and that's what we're laying the ground. We laid the groundwork for that in 2024. We'll continue to lay the groundwork for that in 2025. In fact, more than lay the groundwork, actually, so be building the structure. We're building the manufacturing lines, I'd like setting up for what I think will be an epic 2026 and a ridiculous 27 and 28. Ridiculously good. That is my prediction.
Okay, so I'm going to break in real quick here, just because Elon's opening remarks are very long. And I have a theory. When a CEO and CFO have extraordinarily long opening remarks, my personal belief is that they don't want the analyst questions. They maybe didn't have a good quarter, or they have something they don't want to talk about specifically. So instead of actually, um, giving brief opening remarks and taking questions from analysts, half and half, or usually it's like 10 minutes for the CFO, 10 minutes for the CEO opening remarks. So 20 minutes total. And then the rest of it is analyst questions. And you may take some retail investor questions in there as well. But when they specifically have long opening remarks, like Elon's opening remarks, I can't remember exactly how long they were, but they were more than 15 minutes long. And the CFO's opening remarks, and man, I'm gonna say his name wrong, but I'm gonna give it my best. Vibhav Tanaji, the CFO, his opening remarks were also quite long. When this happens, and then on top of that, Tesla took some say.com questions for like 20 minutes. They didn't give very much time for analysts to ask questions. So I have a theory that that's because Tesla, or any company that does this, by the way, did not want to they didn't want to answer questions. So having said that, let's get into the clip that Elon just talked about. Okay, so let's move on, because Elon is setting up what's to come. He's talking about Tesla could become the most valuable company in the world, like more valuable than the next 5 companies total. And you know what? That's entirely possible, because Tesla is already a very profitable company. It already has a lot of value as a company. It's also possible that they won't be. I don't know that it's a guarantee that it's going to be the most valuable company in the world, simply because markets go up, markets go down, new vehicles come out, more affordable vehicles come out, whatever, and then Tesla has to still compete. And we're kind of getting into an area of like Ford just announced a $36,000 version of the Ford Mach-E. Like that's a pretty compelling vehicle at $36,000. I haven't read the article. I just saw the headline on that, so I don't know much about it. But like that's kind of the market, the way the market's headed. The GM or the Chevy Equinox is $35,000-$40,000. So those are both technically, I guess, the Mach-E's and F1 is a crossover, but those are both very popular segments in the automotive industry here in North America. So let's move on to our next clip, where Elon's going to talk about the value of full self-driving, or FSD, and how people still don't understand how valuable it is. So we will listen to that, and then I will talk to you on the other side.
As yet, very few people understand the value of full self-driving and our ability to monetize the fleet. I've some of these things I've said for quite a long time, and I know people have said, "Well, Elon's the boy who cried wolf," like several times. But I'm telling you, there's a damn wolf this time, and you can drive it. In fact, it can drive you. It's a self-driving wolf. For a lot of people, their experience of Tesla autonomy is like, if it's even a year old, if it's even 2 years old, it's like meeting someone when they're like a toddler and thinking that they're going to be a toddler forever. But obviously they're not going to be a toddler forever. They grow up. But if their last experience was like, oh, FSD was a toddler, it's like, well, it's grown up now. Have you seen it? It's like walks and talks. And that's really what we've got. And it's difficult for people to understand this, because human intuition is linear, as opposed to what we're seeing is exponential progress. So that's why my number one recommendation for anyone who doubts is simply try it. Have you tried it? When's the last time you tried it? And the only people who are skeptical are those who have not tried it. So, a passenger car typically has only about 10 hours of utility per week out of 168. a very small percentage. Once that car is autonomous, my rough estimate is that it is in use for at least a third of the hours of the week. So call it 50, maybe 55 hours of the week. And it can be used for both cargo delivery and people delivery. So even, let's say, people are asleep, but you can deliver packages in the middle of the night, or resupply restaurants, or whatever the case may be, whatever people need, at all hours of the day or night. That same asset, the thing that is these things that already exist with no incremental cost change, just a software update, now have 5 times or more the utility than they currently have. I think this will be the largest asset value increase in human history. Maybe there's something bigger, but I just don't know what it is. And so people who look in the rearview mirror are looking for past precedent, except I don't think there is one. So, but you know, but like the reality of autonomy is upon us. And I repeat my advice: try driving the car, or let it drive you. So now it works very well in the US, but of course it will over time work just as well everywhere else. Yeah. So we're working hard to grow our annual volumes. Our constraint this year, our current constraint, is battery packs this year, but we're working on addressing that constraint. And I think we will make progress on addressing that constraint. And then things are really going to go ballistic next year, and really ballistic in 27 and 28. So, yeah. So a bit more on full self-driving. Our Q4 vehicle safety report shows continued year-over-year improvement in safety for vehicles. So the safety numbers, if somebody has supervised full self-driving turned on or not, the safety differences are gigantic. And people have seen the immense improvement with version 13, and with incremental versions in version 13, and then version 14 is going to be yet another step beyond that is very significant. We launched the Cortex training cluster at Gigafactory Austin, which was a significant contributor to FSD advancement. And we continue to invest in training infrastructure at our Texas headquarters.
All right. First, he has talked about, full self-driving and people not recognizing the real value of full self-driving for a while. And he says, well, if the first time you experienced it is when full self-driver was a toddler, then maybe you should experience it when full self-driver is older. I don't disagree with that, but I have an example to give back, right? And here's my example. If a dad goes to work every day and tells his coworker how great of a driver his toddler is, like his 2-year-old is such a stellar driver, it's amazing. And he does this day after day after day after day. And then he does it for years. And in this story, the toddler ages very slowly, but he does this for years. The toddler drives better than every adult, nearly every adult. We're not going to say every adult, that would be crazy. But the toddler drives nearly better than every adult. Now, this dad has set an expectation that his toddler son is an amazing driver. Then one day, the coworkers get a chance to ride in the car and where the toddler's driving. And this is very exciting because the hype has been, it's just been building and building and building. And they all get in the car, they put their seatbelts on because they're not irresponsible. And the toddler drives. And you know what? The toddler, amazingly enough, knows how to drive, but doesn't understand the rules of the road and makes a lot of mistakes. Some of those mistakes are super dangerous. And some of those people in the car, some of the coworkers, have moments where they're like, oh, I'm really uncomfortable. This is really scary. I don't like this. And then, maybe they drive around the block and a few of those left turns are a little sketchy. The toddler goes out into the lane to make this left turn. And if you're in a right-hand drive country, please use left turn for right turn. You're crossing traffic when you make this turn. And maybe some of those are a little scary and maybe not the smoothest ever. Again, this is a toddler driving. The fact that a toddler is driving a car is amazing, but the toddler is not driving the car at the level that the dad said that they're able to drive this car. So anyway, they go out, they have this experience. Some of the coworkers are unfazed. They're like, you know what? That was really neat. Some of the coworkers were like, I'm never doing that again. And some of the coworkers are like, I can see where this toddler's going, but he's not there yet. Right? So you have those three different opinions. But the dad gets out of the car and he beams with pride and exclaims, that was the best drive yet. Don't you guys agree? That was amazing. You know what's going to happen is the coworkers are now going to be weary. Some of them, not all of them, are going to be weary of that dad's claims. And on top of that, some of those coworkers are not going to believe what the dad says about his amazing toddler son that ages very slowly. He's still 2 years after the fact. So he ages very slowly. That people aren't going to believe that because they saw it with their own eyes that the toddler did not live up to the hype that the dad was putting out there. And I say all that to say this. At the time when full self-driving was released, it was pretty good. Like, it wasn't the best ever, like Elon had said it was, but it was pretty good for many, many years. I don't know if it's probably the entire time I've done this podcast. So for 8 years, Elon has claimed that a full self-driving, unsupervised full self-driving was around the corner, and it hasn't been. We're probably closer today than we were 8 years ago. I'll give him that. But if Elon and Tesla were more realistic about what FSD could do at that time, early on, what it was capable of and what it wasn't capable of, I think people wouldn't be so down on the technology. But instead, they put it out there as how amazing this technology is and how it drives by itself and you hardly have to intervene. And that was not true early on. So it's not to say that the technology is not amazing. It's to say the way it was presented by company leadership was not exactly what was going on when people would experience it in real life. And there's plenty of stories if you go back when FSD was first released, which I think was in like November of 2020, or maybe it was 2021. I'm a little fuzzy on the details. But FSD was not as it was described by leadership at Tesla. And I think it's okay to share a roadmap and say, hey, here's what's coming. Here's what's around the corner. Here's what we're working on. But you need to present that in a very realistic way. You need to present the technology in a very realistic way. This is what it can do. This is what it can't do. And don't overpromise. As a matter of fact, underpromise. Let it be better than you say it is. Because if it's worse than you say it is, that's harder to overcome. If it's better than you say it is, there's like, what do you have to overcome? You're claiming it could do X, Y, and Z, and it could really do W, X, Y, and Z. You just sold a feature that's better than you said it was. How great is that? And I want to get back to this thing with the Robotaxi service. Not everybody wants to loan their car out to strangers. And not everybody wants to loan their car out to even family or friends, depending on the family and friends that you have. As mileage goes up on your vehicle, the chances of a major breakdown increases and the chances of repairs increase, costly repairs in some cases, and the value of your vehicle is going to go down. High mileage cars do not, typically sell for a lot of money, even if they're super high-end cars with good resale values. So you're basically, unless you're doing it for business or you need a little bit extra money, I don't know the benefit of putting your car on the Robotaxi network. Now, if you're doing it with the intention to make money and you're okay with all those things happening, I think that's great. And listen, I'm not saying that if the money wasn't right, I wouldn't put my Tesla on the cyber taxi or robotaxi network. I would definitely do that if the money was right. But if it was a few pennies or a few dollars a day, and I was losing more value than it was worth, probably not a thing. One of the things I will give Elon, though, is the utility of that vehicle goes up significantly. So that is one of the things that I will agree with him on in that case. But yeah, I mean, I know people who bought FSD for, one person bought it for 7,000, and I think both of them bought it for 7,000. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I know two people who paid for FSD. One of whom barely uses it anymore, and the other one says, I use it, but I probably shouldn't have spent the money on this. All right, let's move on to Optimus.
So the training needs for Optimus humanoid robot are probably at least ultimately 10x what's needed for the car, at least to get to the full range of useful roles. You can say, like, how many different roles are there for a humanoid robot versus a car? A humanoid robot has probably 1,000 times more uses and more complex things than in a car. That doesn't mean the training scales by 1,000, but it's probably 10x. Now you can do this progressively, so it doesn't mean like Tesla's going to spend like $500 billion in training compute, because we will obviously train Optimus to do enough tasks to match the output of Optimus robots. And obviously the cost of training is dropping dramatically with time. So, but it is like, it is one of those things where I think long-term Optimus will be. Optimus has the potential to be north of $10 trillion in revenue. Like, it's really bananas. So then you can obviously afford a lot of training compute in that situation. In fact, even $500 billion of training compute in that situation would be quite a good deal. Yeah. The future is going to be incredibly different from the past, that's for sure. We live at this unbelievable inflection point in human history. So,
okay, so a lot of bold claims about Optimus. $10 trillion in revenue over like a lifetime. Like, it can't be over a year. That's an ridiculous amount of money. Over 10 years, what are we talking about? $10 trillion in revenue. Like, where's that number coming from? And they're looking at doing 100 million robots a year. And let's pretend their target price for these autonomous robots are $25,000. Then yeah, that's $2.5 trillion a year if they can sell that many, and in 4 years it'll be a $10 trillion business. Okay, I'm just not sure we're over what time period are we talking about $10 trillion in revenue. I mean, if it's infinite, it's not really that. If the time period is infinite, that's not really that impressive. Like, if I was immortal, I could probably make $10 trillion in my lifetime if I was immortal, but I'm not. All right, let's move on to unsupervised FSD.
Yeah. So, the proof is in the pudding. So we're going to be launching unsupervised full self-driving as a paid service in Austin in June. So, talked with the team. We feel confident in being able to do an initial launch of unsupervised, no one in the car, full self-driving in Austin in June. We already have Teslas operating autonomously unsupervised full self-driving at our factory in Fremont, and we'll soon be doing that at our factory in Texas. So thousands of cars every day are driving with no one in them at our Fremont factory in California. They will soon be doing that in Austin and then elsewhere in the world at the rest of our factories. which is pretty cool. And the cars aren't just driving to exactly the same spot, because obviously it all wouldn't collide at the same spot. The cars are actually programmed with what lane they need to park into to be picked up for delivery. So they drive from the factory end of line to their destination parking spot, and to be picked up for delivery to customers. And they're doing this reliably every day, thousands of times a day. It's pretty cool. Like I said, these Teslas will be in the wild with no one in them in June in Austin. So what I'm saying is, this is not some far off mythical situation. It's literally, 5 months away, 5 months away, type of thing. And while we're putting our toe in the water gently at first, just to make sure everything's cool, our solution is a generalized AI solution. It does not require high precision maps of a locality. So we just want to be cautious. It's not that it doesn't work beyond Austin. In fact, it does. We just want to put a toe in the water, make sure everything is okay, then put a few more toes in the water, then put a foot in the water, with safety of the general public and those in the car as our top priority.
Okay, so I do think we will see some version of unsupervised full self-driving in Austin in 2025. I don't know it's going to be, June of 2025, but it'll be, I think that's reasonable. I don't know that they will be able to put these cars on the road without a safety driver, unless they've already been testing it in Austin and we just don't know about it. If they got people driving around Austin with safety drivers like Waymo did before they were available to the public, then sure, that's a real possibility, and that's awesome. But if they haven't done that yet, I don't see how any municipality or governing body would let them just go whole hog without somebody in the car. In regards to the video, I have seen the video that he's talking about with the cars, driving from one part of the Fremont factory to the other, and it is very impressive. Here's the thing that I'm saying here. Tesla has manipulated many of these videos, so I don't believe any of them. Again, if you take it on the surface, it looks very impressive. And if they're telling the truth in this case, then it's really cool. Like it's a cool video. You can go to Tesla's Twitter account and it's up there. But they have massaged videos before and been caught doing it. So I don't believe any videos that Tesla puts out. I think it's really cool, but I don't believe that it's accurate, just because they've done this too many times for me. So I don't believe it. There was one say.com question from a retail investor that asked about the hurdles that they had to overcome in terms of the cyber cab or robotaxi service. They answered part of that question. They didn't talk about any of the hurdles that they had to overcome. One of the things that they answered, was that it would be coming to California in 2025 as well. So, that's not a surprise, just a little bit more of a confirmation. So I appreciate Tesla's cautious approach in terms of, let's not hurt anybody in the car or any of the pedestrians around the vehicle or any of the other drivers that are driving around. So I'm happy to hear that. And I don't think that they would, as hardcore, as Elon says, as Tesla is at times, I don't think they're going to, let their vehicles go out and wipe out a bunch of people that one, that's just a really sick thing to do, and two, it's not good for business. So I appreciate the focus around safety, but yeah, this is one of those things that I believe part of what they're saying. Let's put it that way. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our next bit, which is again about Optimus robot. So we go again, like I said, we're going to go from full self-driving to Optimus robot to full self-driving to cars to this to that. It just bounces back and forth. So back to Optimus robot.
With regard to Optimus, obviously I'm making these revenue predictions that sound absolutely insane. I realize that, but they are. I think they will prove to be accurate. Yeah. Now with Optimus, there's a lot of uncertainty on the exact timing, because it's not like a train arriving at the station for Optimus. We are designing the train and the station and in real time while also building the tracks. and so they're like, why didn't the train arrive exactly at 12:05? I'm like, we're literally designing the train and the tracks in the station in real time while you're like, how can we predict this thing with absolute precision? It's impossible. The normal internal plan calls for roughly 10,000 Optimus robots to be built this year. Will we succeed in building 10,000 exactly by the end of December this year? Probably not. But will we succeed in making several thousand? Yes, I think we will. Will those several thousand Optimus robots be doing useful things by the end of the year? Yes, I'm confident they will do useful things. The Optimus in use at the Tesla factories for production design 1 will inform what we change for production design 2, which we expect to launch next year. And our goal is to ramp Optimus production faster than maybe anything's ever been ramped. Meaning, like, aspirationally, an order of magnitude ramp per year. Now, if we aspire to an order of magnitude ramp per year, perhaps we only end up with a half order of magnitude per year. But that's the kind of growth that we're talking about. It doesn't take very many years before we're making 100 million of these things a year. If you go up by, let's say, a factor, by 5x per year. It's insane. Not 50%, 500%. So, these are big growth numbers. Yeah, but we do need to. This is an entirely new supply chain. It is entirely new technology. There's nothing off the shelf to use. We tried desperately with Optimus to use any existing motors, any actuators, sensors. Nothing worked for a humanoid robot at any price. We had to design everything from physics first principles to work for a humanoid robot, and with the most sophisticated hand that has ever been made before, by far. And Optimus will be able to play the piano, and be able to thread a needle. I mean, this is the level of precision no one has been able to achieve, and so it's really something special. Yeah. So, and my prediction long term is that Optimus will be overwhelmingly the value of the company.
At one time, Elon thought that the energy business would be the driving force in the company as far as value. So obviously, that's not necessarily the case. But we're going to hear more about Tesla Energy here in just a second. I just want to say, the growth in terms of production that Elon was talking about is great. Being able to do 500% more in producing 500% more year after year after year. But if you don't have the demand or the desire of people to buy those products at whatever the price is, and even $25,000, if the robot is limited in what it can do, like it won't go out and blow the leaves in the backyard for me, and it won't vacuum and mop every day and all those other things, then it doesn't really, if the only thing that it does is dusts and walks up and down stairs, I don't have a lot of value for that at $25,000. So if your demand isn't 5x or 500% more each year, it doesn't really matter that you could produce it. You need to have people who want to buy it. Otherwise, you're just going to be storing, these parts in robot form in a warehouse somewhere, and maybe you could use them as an army if we want to get super dystopian. But for right now, I'm sure they'd rather sell them. Okay, next up, Elon's going to talk about the energy business.
Regarding energy, back to Earth. It was to Elon. Can you come back here for a minute? Okay, back to Earth. Energy storage is a big deal, and will become. It's already super important. Will become incredibly important in the future, and it is something that enables far greater energy output to the grid than is currently possible, because the grids are the vast majority of the grid has no energy storage capability, so they have to design the power plants for very high peaks, and assuming that there's no energy storage. Once you have grid energy storage and home-based energy storage, the actual total energy output per year of the grid is dramatically greater than people think. Maybe it's at least double. This will drive the demand of stationary battery packs, and especially the grid scale ones, to insane, basically as much demand as we could possibly make. We have our second factory, which is in Shanghai, that's starting operation, and we're building a third factory. So we're trying to ramp output of the stationary battery storage as quickly as possible. Now, there is a challenge here where we have to be careful too, that we're not robbing from one pocket to take to another pocket, because for a given gigawatt hours per year of the cell output, we have to say, does it go into stationary applications or mobile applications? It can't go into both. So we have to make that trade-off. But overall, the demand for total gigawatt hours of batteries, whether mobile or stationary, that will grow in a very, very big way over time. So, in conclusion, 2025 really is a pivotal year for Tesla. And when people look back on 2025 and the launch of unsupervised full self-driving, true real-world AI that actually works, I think they may regard it as the biggest year in Tesla history, maybe even bigger than our first car, the Roadster, or the Model S, or the Model 3, or Model Y. In fact, I think it probably will be viewed 25 as maybe the most important year in Tesla's history. There is no company in the world that is as good at real-world AI as Tesla. I don't even know who's in second place. Like, you say, who's in second place for real-world AI? I would need a very big telescope to see them. That's how far behind they are.
Okie doke. We will look back on 2025 and we'll see if it was the biggest year for Tesla. And it might very well be. I don't know. Elon at the end there with some extreme confidence in terms of real world AI. All right. That was Elon's opening remarks. The CFO, Vaibhav Taneja, most of what he talked about, and he talked for a long time too, but most of what he talked about was financial related and really didn't go into anything that's interesting for this show. Two things he did say, though, was that one, new products are coming, cheaper cars, which is welcome. And then another one, he addressed tariffs, and he said that for some time now, Tesla has been trying to localize their supply chain so that the tariffs won't affect them as much. All right, let's move on to our say.com questions, which are retail investor questions. The first question is about licensing full self-driving to other automakers. So let's go ahead and listen to that.
Are there any discussions with other auto companies about licensing FSG?
Yes. What we're seeing is, at this point, significant interest from a number of major car companies about licensing Tesla full self-driving technology. What we've generally said is the best way to know what to do is take one of our cars apart, and then you can see where the placement of the cameras are, what the thermal needs are of the Tesla AI inference computer. That's better than us, sending some CAD drawings. And then we're only going to entertain situations where the volume would be very high. Otherwise, it's just not worth the complexity. And we will not burden our engineering team with laborious discussions with other engineering teams until we obviously have unsupervised full self-driving working throughout the United States. I think the interest level from other manufacturers to license FSD will be extremely high once it is obvious that unless you have FSD, you're dead.
Okay. I'm a little confused on this. It sounds like they're interested in licensing full self-driving, but they're not ready. They're not ready because they don't have full self-driving, unsupervised full self-driving throughout the United States. So they're not going to put that much effort into it. And honestly, if you said on an earnings call, hey, come and talk to us about full self-driving, we would like to license it to you. And then as a CEO, I came to you and I said, hey, let's talk about full self-driving. And they're like, well, just take apart one of our cars and you'll see what's doing. I would not be interested in that. I would not want to be, I'm not going to say partner, but I would like to have more information than just, hey, go buy one of our cars and tear it apart. Maybe you could just send the CAD drawings over and maybe we'll buy one of your cars and tear it apart. Maybe we'll do both, but I don't understand the reluctance here in terms of wanting to make sure that they have full unsupervised level 4, level 5 autonomy throughout the United States or North America. Sure, that makes sense to me. I also understand not burdening your engineering team. I guess what it comes down to is if you're not ready to license out your technology, why bring it up ever? If you're not willing to have those talks and have a few engineers available for other companies' engineers to chat with, why even bring it up? Bring it up when you're ready. Don't bring it up now. So I understand this was a say.com question and they didn't bring it up in this earnings call, but they've brought it up in previous earnings calls. And yeah, and I don't buy if by the time we have full self-driving solved effectively, and if you don't have it, you'll be dead. I don't think that's true. First of all, if you listen or believe Elon, it's going to cost more than $8,000, and they've already had to drop the price from $12,000 to $8,000. I think they were planning on raising it to $15,000. They already had to drop that. And I can't imagine that Tesla's going to let other automakers sell it for cheaper than what Tesla's selling it for, because that wouldn't be good for business. So yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting play on Tesla's part, inviting people to talk to them about, or companies to talk to them about licensing full self-driving, and then saying, yeah, we're not going to burden our engineer team with your engineer team until we've already got this solved. Why don't you just solve it and not bring it up? And again, I realize they didn't bring it up in this case, but they've brought it up in the past, and that's why they're having these conversations. So it doesn't make sense to me. All right, let's move on to our next clip.
The next question is, what is the status on mass production of the Tesla Semi, and how will it impact revenue at scale?
I can take that one. So we just closed up the Semi factory roof and walls last week in Reno. It's ahead of schedule, which is great with the weather. In Reno, you never know what's going to happen. But we're prepping for mechanical installation of all the equipment in the coming months. The first builds of the high volume Semi design will come late this year in 2025 and begin ramping early in 2026. But as we've said before, the Semi is a TCO no-brainer. Like it's really similar to Optimus. It's set by how much people pay, and then it as a total cost of ownership, it's much cheaper than any other transportation you can have. So at that point, when we're at scale, it will meaningfully contribute to Tesla's revenue. Well, I think it's difficult to say how much. Anything you want to add, Elon?
No, I mean, I do think Tesla Semi, again, with autonomy, is going to be incredibly valuable. That we actually have a shortage of truck drivers in America. That's one of the limiting factors on transport. People are human, so they get tired, and sometimes, there's, I have a lot of respect for truck drivers because it's a tough job. But because it's a tough job, there's not that many people that want to do it, and there's actually fewer. I believe, if my understanding is correct, there are fewer people entering truck driving as a profession than are leaving it.
Yes.
So when you think, yeah, exactly. So when you consider, okay, if there's more people leaving truck driving as a profession than entering it, well, we're going to have a real logistics problem as time goes by. So autonomy will be very important to meet that need. It'll. I don't know. It's a several billion a year opportunity, which I don't know in this context, is that these days does several billion a year matter? I think it does. Not nothing. It's probably it's probably like a 10 billion a year thing. Yeah, it's $1 billion a month at some point probably. But it's all this is going to pale in comparison to Optimus. So yeah, $1 billion a month it's a lot, but it's not. It's going to be like 1% of Optimus or something.
It's going to be something like 1% of what you think Optimus will be, maybe not what it actually is. And, honestly, let's talk about how long before Optimus becomes useful. We'll say to industry first, and then to regular schlubs like myself second. It's going to be a bit, probably. If I'm going on Elon timelines for products, not for factories, because he's usually, at some point in time, he mentioned that, he kind of gets a lot of grief for his timelines, but there's a lot of timelines that he hits, and I agree with that, and that's a perfectly valid point. But for products, he's often very late. For things like factories, he's usually way early. So I will give him those flowers. But as a independent content creator, I understand the value of diversifying where I get my money. So I have this podcast, which, you folks give me money from Patreon, which is very, very nice. And I have ads for folks who either can't afford or unwilling to give money. And that's okay. I don't mind that. You're just going to listen to a couple ads. So you could probably skip them if you wanted to. I won't tell, but so that's nice that I have those revenue streams. Then I also have other podcasts that have ads on them, and one of the other ones also has Patreon as well. So it is not a lot of money, but I have money coming in from different areas to keep myself afloat if I was reliant on it. Like I have a full-time job, that's another revenue stream, and my wife works, so that's another revenue stream. So it's not like if I was only relying on Patreon for this podcast, I would be in serious financial trouble. But I'm not, you know what I mean? And $10 billion is a lot of money. And like the amount of I don't know, the cockiness that he's like, is that even a lot of money anymore? Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to you, and it's a lot of money to everybody else. Is it the most amount of money? No, but it's still a lot of money. So you probably, as a company, would like to have a diverse stream of revenue of different places where your money's coming in. Like Tesla realized like $600 million in gains from their Bitcoin purchase a couple of years ago. That's, they're not getting money from one particular part of their business. Same with, if Apple decided that they were going to get rid of their Mac line tomorrow because it's not as successful as their iPhone line, that there's hundreds of billions of dollars gone, but it's not as much as their iPhone line. Right? It's probably tens of billions of dollars gone, not hundreds. But it's still still a lot of money. That's my point. So yeah, it's a lot of money. All right. And by the way, I also think that this Tesla Semi is going to be a big deal. And if it does have full self-driving in a way that Elon imagines it, I do think it will be a game changer for the shipping industry for sure. All right, let's move on to our next clip, which I believe is about Tesla upgrading hardware 3 vehicles to hardware 4 vehicles or AI 4 vehicles so they can actually, someday be hopefully autonomous, maybe, kinda, with any luck. Like, fingers crossed, updating to AI 4 will actually get this done, but it probably won't. Let's listen to that clip, though.
Is it expected that Tesla will need to upgrade hardware 3 vehicles? And if so, what is the timeline and expected impact to Tesla's CapEx? I think they're referring to cost there.
They're really asking the tough questions, aren't they?
I guess we haven't stopped working on hardware 3 yet. We are still making software releases. We released the 12.6 release recently, which was like a baby V13, but it's a significant improvement compared to what they had previously. And people are still finding ways to distill larger models into smaller models. So we're not giving up on hardware 3. We're still working on it. Just the releases will trail the hardware 4 releases.
Great. Thanks, Ashok.
Yeah. I mean, I think the honest answer is that we're going to have to upgrade people's hardware 3 computer for those that have bought full self-driving. And that is the honest answer. And that's going to be painful and difficult, but we'll get it done. Now I'm kind of glad that not that many people bought the FSD package.
Not that many people bought the FSD package. Oh boy. So that leads me to believe that if you've been subscribing, even if you started subscribing on day 1, you are not going to get a upgrade. You might have to pay for it, or you might not even have the opportunity to pay for it. It might be too difficult. But I do appreciate that Tesla is willing to pay for people who have hardware 3 and to upgrade them to hardware 4. Now, what if hardware 4 runs up against limitations and they can't do that, right? They can't they can't fulfill their promise of full self-driving. Will they upgrade them to hardware 5? I hope so. Like, they've already set a standard. And what Tesla's doing is, if you sell your car on a private party, right? I sell my car to you and I have full self-driving, then you get to keep the full self-driving. And that's really cool. But if I trade my car in, Tesla removes full self-driving and they try to resell it back to you. So over time, more of these cars where people paid for full self-driving and they got hardware 3, they're either going to get traded in to Tesla and that'll be removed, or they'll age out, or they'll get wrecked or whatever. And, they just won't have that opportunity for full self-driving. But having said that, I do appreciate that Elon was like, hey, here's the truth. We're going to have to pay to upgrade those. I think that's good to hear. So I applaud Elon for saying that. All right, let's move on to a clip about Solar Roof.
The next question, Has Tesla given up on ramping their solar roof product?
No,
Yeah.
we're sorry, Mike. Oh, Mike, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can take it. Yeah, solar roof remains a core part of the residential product portfolio, and it still remains where it draws a lot of customer interest despite it being premium products. We've worked on multiple iterations of engineering to make the product easier to install and distribute by reducing the SKU count. And more recently, rather than direct installation, we are focused on growth through our nationwide network of certified installers. And many of those, they've been installing solar roof with us for many years.
Yeah, that's actually turned out to be a much better way for is just let the roof just supply product to the roofing industry, and especially when somebody's is getting a new roof anyway, or building a house from scratch. Obviously, this is by far the most efficient time to put in a solar roof, as opposed to putting a solar roof on a house where the roof still has 20 years of life. That's not economically sensible, but if it's a new house or the roof needs to be replaced anyway, then solar roof can make a lot of sense. And it is a premium product. It's like it's kind of like Model S, Model X or something. It's like it's a premium product. I think it looks really cool. And your house generates electricity, and if you combine it with the Tesla Powerwall battery, then you can be self-sufficient. So even if the grid turns off for several days, your house still works. And your roof looks awesome. So it's like, I recommend anyone who can afford it, get the Tesla solar roof and the Powerwall. Your family's life might depend on it.
Get enough.
And just in terms of convenience, your kids are not going to yell at you because their computers don't work because the power went out and you can't charge your phone.
True story.
Actually happens. Yeah. You literally can't even call anyone because your phone's out of juice.
I like to think my kids wouldn't yell at me if the power went out and they couldn't use their electronic devices. My kids don't yell at me, and I try not to yell at them. So that's, anyway. I don't think that's a good reason to have solar roof, is what I'm saying. So I went on Tesla's website, and at one point in time, I could get a quote on what it costs to put a solar roof on my house. I have Tesla solar panels. I have a Tesla. So they know approximately how much electricity I'm currently generating. I would assume they know roughly how much electricity that I am using. So I should be able to go to their website, put in my address, put in my account, and get a quote for a solar roof. And it would be fairly accurate because they put the solar panels on my roof. Unfortunately, I have to put in my information and then an installer will call me, and I'm not interested in that. So I wasn't able to get a price for you. But if I was to put a solar panel system on my house, and we're talking 11.89 kilowatt hours of solar panels, which is what they recommended based on my electricity bill and based on how much roof I have available. So it's 11.89 kilowatt hours. We'll just say 12 kilowatt hours. That would be $27,000. And then I want 2 power walls. So that's an additional $22,000. Just when you combine those two. And then when you get the cash price, I would pay $42,415 for that. Now, because I don't know what the solar roof is going to cost, I can't tell you whether that's more or less for a certain, but it's less. Like at one point in time, it was like $78,000 for me to put a solar roof on my house. I don't know what it is now. It's probably less, but solar panels are probably the better way to go still. And if you can afford to put a battery backup on that, all the better. Okay, let's move on to our next clip, which is about version 14 full self-driving.
And the last question from say.com, what technical breakthroughs will define V14 of FSD, given that V13 already covered photon to control?
Well, we've gone a hell of a lot, gone a hell of a lot further than photons to output. We've been in sort of the nothing but nets situation, nothing but neural nets from photons to controls for a while now. We're just improving the neural nets. I guess we could get into some of the technical details to some degree. I have to say, I continue to be amazed by just how effective autoregressive transformers are at solving a wide range of problems. I mean, Ashok, is there anything you'd like to add there without giving away the sort of family secrets?
I mean, except for things we put on X already. Yeah, so continuing to scale the model size a lot. We scale a bunch in V13, but then there's still room to grow. So we're going to continue to scale the model size. We're going to increase the context length even more. The memory is sort of like limited right now. We want to increase the amount of memory it holds, like give to even minutes of context for driving. We're going to add audio and emergency vehicles better. Add like data of the tricky corner cases that we get from the entire fleet. Any interventions or any kind of like user intervention. We just add that to the data set. So the scaling in basically every axis, like training compute, data set size, model context, and also all the reinforcement learning objectives.
All right. I don't have anything to add to that, so let's get to our analyst questions.
You've said in the past about LiDAR, that for AVs at least, that LiDAR is a crutch, a fool's errand. I think you even told me once, even if it was free, you'd say you wouldn't use it. You still feel that way?
Yes.
Care to elaborate, or just I have another question?
Look, we even have a radar in the car and we turned it off.
I got it. All right. So you're still, yeah. People think you're crazy, but for not
look. I mean, obviously, humans drive without shooting lasers out of their eyes. I mean, unless you're Superman, but like humans drive just with passive visual. Humans drive with eyes and a neural net and a brain neural net. So sort of biological, so the digital equivalent of eyes and a brain are cameras and digital neural nets or AI. So that's the entire road system was designed for passive optical neural nets. That's how the whole road system was not designed, and what everyone is expecting that's how we expect other cars to behave. So therefore, that is very obviously the solution for full self-driving as a generalized solution for full self-driving, as opposed to the very specific, neighborhood by neighborhood solution, which is very difficult to maintain, which is what our competitors are doing.
I got you.
Yeah.
I mean, LiDAR doesn't work in the fall, guys.
LiDAR has a lot of issues. Like I don't have some like the SpaceX Dragon docks with the space station using LiDAR, that a program that I personally spearheaded. I don't have some fundamental bizarre dislike of LiDAR. It's simply the wrong solution for driving cars on roads.
Right. You understand how LiDAR works. I get it.
Literally designed and built our own LiDAR. I oversaw the project, the engineering of the thing. It was my decision to use LiDAR on Dragon, and I oversaw that engineering project directly. So I'm like, we literally designed and made a LiDAR to dock with the space station. If I thought it was the right solution for cars, I would do that, but it isn't.
I wonder where Adam Jonas thought this question was going to go. Like, it does seem pretty obvious that they're not going to use LiDAR in their vehicles. I'm just super curious as to how he thought that question was going to go. Anyway, in case you thought that Tesla would be doing LiDAR, they're not going to. All right, let's move on to our next analyst question.
I'd have a question, Elon, on deploying like robotaxis in June in Austin. So that's great news. And I was wondering if it means I can, drive down to Austin in June and try unsupervised by myself with my car.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be more like your fleet testing it.
It'll be our fleet testing it. So that's our sort of toe in the water. We'll be scrutinizing it very carefully, make sure it's not something we missed. but it will be, autonomous ride hailing for money in Austin in June, and then as swiftly as possible other cities in America. And I expect us to be operating, doing unsupervised activity with our internal fleet in several cities by the end of the year. Then it's probably next year when people are able to add or subtract their car from the fleet. So, kind of like Airbnb, where you can sort of add or subtract your house or your guest room. You can say like add it to the Airbnb inventory or don't add it to the Airbnb inventory. If you're traveling for a month, you can, or whatever the case may be, you can let other people use your house, and then you can. Anyway, so that's probably next year because we want to just make sure we've ironed out any kinks. And a lot of it is, it's not like we're not splitting the atom here. It's just a bunch of work that needs to be done to make sure the whole thing works efficiently, that people can order the car. It comes, it's the right spot, does exactly the right thing. All the payment systems work. The billing works.
Okay. But then, so my follow-up question would be, I have a Tesla, I have FSD, and I have to keep my eyes on the road all the time. It's super boring because I don't really need to intervene anymore. And but the really annoying thing is that I can't just check my emails. And so, are you working also on introducing, like a kind of like free unsupervised where I could be eyes off and I would be able to check my email and would just need to, with a 5-second notice, have to go back and keep an eye on what's happening? Or is that something you're working on as well? Because it feels so close with V13 that I wonder if it's something we could expect for this year. It's a very selfish question I ask for myself, to be honest.
Yes. We need to be very confident that the probability of injury is low before we allow people to check their email and text messages. In fact, right now we're in this perverse situation, which you may have encountered yourself, where people will actually go to manual driving to check their text messages.
Yep.
So the computer doesn't yell at them, and then put it back on autonomous mode once they've checked the text messages, which is obviously less safe, significantly less safe than just letting people check their text once in a while without the computer yelling at them.
Yeah.
But we just want to be cautious about that at the advent of that. We're in this sort of, neither here nor there, but just for, I think it's not for many months longer. But yeah, we're in this perverse situation where people will turn the car off autopilot so the computer doesn't yell at them, check their text messages while steering the car with their knee and not looking out the window.
And fair, like Elon said, right? If you have any problems with the system, and when people are not looking, that is a dangerous, and that's what we're trying to avoid. It's the capability is getting there, but it's not fully there. That's why he was using the term of dipping our toe in the water, then getting comfortable, then keep going.
Anyway, it's not far off, but we want to prove to ourselves, and obviously prove to regulators that the car is unequivocally safer in autonomous mode than not. And we're not far off. So this is like low single-digit months.
To the safety aspect, we did publish our vehicle safety report today, and in Q4 was one crash for every 5.9 million miles driven, compared to a crash every 700,000 miles without autopilot.
Right. So we're getting to the point where it's an order of magnitude.
Yeah, it's like 8.5 times safety. So it's just about there.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Oh, okie doke. I think that's a good update. I don't really have anything more to add. I think by this point in time, everybody knows that I'm suspicious of the timelines. But other than that, I think it's good update. All right, let's go ahead and move to our final analyst question.
Right. Alrighty. And our last question will be coming from Dan Levi at Barclays. Dan, feel free to unmute yourself.
Great. Good evening. Thank you for taking the questions. Elon, you've talked about the need for proliferation of sustainable transport in the past as part of sort of broader push to sustainable energy. Look, I know we've heard a lot about President Trump's plans to reverse the EV mandate, and I think there's a view that given regulation is a driver of EV uptake, this could slow EV uptake in the U.S. So, what would be your view on the right policy in the U.S., given your comments in the past of the need to push for sustainable transport?
At this point, I think that sustainable transport is inevitable. I'm highly confident that all transport will be autonomous electric, including aircraft, and that it can't be stopped any more than one could have stopped the advent of the external combustion engine, the steam engine, or one could have stopped the advent of the internal combustion engine. Like even if you've been the biggest horse advocate on earth, horses are the way, not these newfangled automobiles. You can't stop the advent of the automobile. It's going to happen. And you can't stop the advent of electric cars. It's going to happen. The only thing holding back electric cars was range, and that is a solved problem.
Great.
And then, as a follow-up, in the past, Elon, you had made a comment that you'd be willing to sell cars at effectively no margin to get the cars out there. And there's a comment in the release today of the rate of acceleration of autonomy efforts does impact volume growth. So perhaps you could just talk about, with your efforts on FSD, how we should think about your desire to put more vehicles out in the market to take advantage of your tech advances.
So I'm not sure I understand the question. But we have a lot of cars. I mean, we've got millions of cars out there.
So is your question then that how do we marry our future growth aspects with FSD?
And go ahead and unmute yourself, Dan.
Yeah, more so just how much more aggressively you would be willing to sell your cars versus in light of your improvements on FSD.
Well, right now the constraint we're trying to solve is battery production, as opposed to demand. So now Q1 we've got this massive factory retooling for the new Model Y, for example. That obviously has a short-term impact on output. But the problem we're wrestling with, in fact, we're talking that the executive team and I were talking about just before this call was how we've got to figure out how to increase total gigawatt hours of battery production this year, one way or another. That's the constraint on our output.
Okay. I don't have a lot more to add here. Elon's been talking about for a while about battery constraints, and then it eased up a little bit, and now we're talking about battery constraints again. And they've got a lot of products that batteries are going into, so I can completely understand where that would ebb and flow. They just put online their lithium-ion factory or refiner lithium-ion refining plant. They just brought that online, the one in Texas. So, I can completely understand where they're coming from this point of view. The part where Elon says that, it's inevitable that we'll be sustainable in terms of transportation. I agree. If I don't think anything that President Trump does, unless it's like saying, we're going to tax every electric vehicle by 100%, so nobody buys electric vehicles, and I don't think he's going to do that. I think people are going to buy electric vehicles for their own selfish reasons, whatever that may be. Maybe they want to save money on fuel, or possibly, if we go into a trade war with China, or not China, Canada, there's a chance that we'll be paying more in fuel, or we'll have less fuel, and that will make demand go up, which makes prices go up. So there's reasons that people might be driven toward electric vehicles. And eventually, I think, it'd be great if airplanes could be, powered by some sort of renewable energy, or some sort of like algae biofuel, which is a friend of mine, when I met him 20 years ago, was going to plant all algae fields so he could make biofuel for jets. And, that hasn't come to fruition, and thank God he didn't do that. But, there are, I think there are enough reasons to buy an electric vehicle that I don't think we need incentives from our governments to buy the electric vehicles. It definitely makes it nice. It definitely helps with spurring adoption, quickening it up, making it faster. Man, I'm losing my brain here. It definitely makes that process go faster, or it could. We can give that adoption a boost, is what I'm trying to say. But in terms of, the government or certain politicians saying, yeah, don't buy electric vehicles, I don't think that has a lot to do with whether people are going to buy them or not. But the question is how long before we get to that sustainable transportation part. And then also, we need to make sure we're mining responsibly and we're recycling responsibly. All of this has to, like, this is bigger than just driving an electric vehicle, for sure. But I do agree eventually we'll get there, because people are going to make choices that are in their best self-interest. And honestly, I was paying close to $400 a month in fuel when I got my car, and I pay about $28 a month. On a high month, it's $28 in electricity. So not too shabby. All right, everybody, that is it for me this week. Thank you for staying with us. This was definitely a longer podcast than I normally do. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you want to email me and tell me your thoughts on the earnings call, it's Bodie, BODIE, at 918digital.com. You can also find me on Twitter at 918digital and or X. And yeah, I hope everybody has a super great day, a super great weekend. And I will talk to you on Tuesday.
Great. Alrighty. And with that, I think we are all done for today. So thanks everyone so much for all of your questions. We look forward to talking to you next quarter. Thank you very much, and goodbye.